inshallah. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Muhammad wa ahla baytihi tayyibin tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Alhamdulillah, we finished with the section on Nabi Nuh alayhi salam, or Prophet Noah. Now we're moving to the talk about the next prophet, Prophet Hud. We're on page 115 in the book. It says, generations had passed since the death of Noah. The descendants of Ad, a great grandson of Noah, had settled in the southern parts of the Arabian Peninsula. They were organized into 13 different clans who were collectively known as Ad, after their common ancestor. So they named them all their tribes. They named themselves after this ancestor. This is who we belong to, this ancestor, and this is our name of the people of Ad. They were the heirs of the civilization that Noah's flood had obliterated. Allah had showered them with innumerable blessings. He made them with enormous physical size and strength. He endowed them with land unparalleled in Arabia in its fertility, and there were countless springs to water their farms and gardens, and no dearth of pasture for their herds of cattle. So they had it good. They were living nice. They had water. They had strength. They had green places for their cattle to go. They had water, so they were living good. It says, among the winding sandstone mountains of Yemen. So they were in this part of Arab world, in modern day Yemen. It says, in Yemen, the Ad had crafted a magnificent city they called Iram, the city of pillars. It was a city destined to become a legend in human history, never to be paralleled. They had used their immense physical strength and their advanced technological skills to hew massive monolithic pillars as long as the mountains from which they hewed them. They were that tall. They would haul these pillars of stone into Iram, affix them into the earth, and then build their palaces or houses on top of them. Upon every hill and mountain, there erected monuments to display their wealth and power to the world. Their buildings were such solid edifices that it seemed to all who saw them that they would last for eternity. Their military might made them seem invincible. When they struck at their enemies, they struck with such brutality that they left no one and nothing standing. So they built this massive city that was amazing for people because of these pillars that they took out of the mountains, and they built their palaces and houses on top of these things. So it was a very amazing place. Someone would see it and say, wow, like, how did they do this type of thing? And they were very strong people. Allah gave them strength, and they said physical size. So they were a big group of people, not like they had height and strength. It says, counter to their great technological, artistic, agricultural, and military advancements, the Ad found themselves in a steep downward spiral of religious and moral decay. In the centuries following Noah's death, one by one, each of the prophecies he had delivered to his followers from his deathbed had been fulfilled. All the evil that had drowned with the flood had gradually resurfaced and shown its face. More and more people had devoted themselves to idol worship. Those unfit to rule had assumed power, and injustice and immorality were rampant. So we see that mankind is always in need, of a warner and a reminder to call mankind back to the straight path. These people were just with Noah. They witnessed this flood. They saw these things happen. And you see that even in that short span of time, they had gotten away from the path of Tawheed and started worshiping idols. The same thing we mentioned with Nabi Musa alayhi salam. He is gone for 30 days, extend 10 days. These people went straight to worshiping a golden calf that they shaped for themselves. So we are always in need of some person to call us back, some guide Allah has sent us. As we see with all of the time that has went by. For example, Musa had Torah. People left that, changed it, started going astray. Now we see Prophet Isa alayhi salam calling people back to what Prophet Musa was saying. And then Prophet Isa alayhi salam, we see that he was raised to the heavens, and people took Injil, changed it, started worshiping Isa, na'udhu billah. And we see that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is sent to bring people back to the message that the earlier prophets. They're all working together, calling people to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as one God. So we see that we are always in need of this. These people have just left and started decaying and going back towards those immoral things. We see as society goes further and further away from the time of their prophet, more and more things, corruption happens. We see that if we look back, that maybe some things were looked down upon 30 years ago or 40 years ago, but now these things are done, with these sins are done with no problems and no shame. And, things are becoming that were illegal or are becoming, we can see this with, for example, in a lot of places, most places in America, prostitution is illegal. But we see, like in some states, like Nevada, in some areas, they have legalized these things. These things were looked at as bad by general public, non-Muslims, Muslim, everybody. But now this group of people, they have said, no, we're going to do this thing, and this thing is okay. Or alcohol was prohibited. Okay, now alcohol is fine, they say, and then you can do it. Or these things, we see the decay of society, that were some things that were they were always haram, but now people are taking haram and changing it and making it halal, or taking halal and making it haram. These type of things. So we always need that guide or that prophet to call us back, and we need to attach ourselves to their message. Then we don't look to society to tell us what is halal and what is haram, or what is acceptable or what is not acceptable. It doesn't matter what society determines, because every society is different. Some things are acceptable here that are not acceptable other places, and some things are acceptable there that are not acceptable here. For example, we see many cultural differences. We see in Middle East, men are holding hands and walking in the street. There's think nothing of it. But if you do that in America, it means something different. Or someone gives the A-OK like this, this is okay for us, it means good. But in Brazil, this is equal to giving someone a middle finger in America. So these type of things, some societies look at things as good, and other society can look at the same thing as bad. It's all cultural differences, and we don't need to look to society or cultural things to tell us what is good and acceptable and what is not acceptable. We need to make our first primary source is Quran and teachings of Holy Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So we need to, like I said before in other class, shape our worldview based on Thaqalain, Quran and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and not what society or everyone else is saying. If everyone in society says, oh, this thing is okay, but Allah says it is haram, it's haram. It doesn't matter what everyone says, it's still, we're not going to do it. We shouldn't do it, even if all the people are coming telling us that. So he said, for the few surviving believers that were in this time of after Noah, when during the people of Ad. The only glimmer of hope that remained was the Savior who Noah had promised would rise up from among his progeny and purge the world of evil once again. The dwindling ranks of the righteous held on to this thread of hope. They knew what his name would be. They knew what sort of character he would have. They even knew what he would look like. But with the passing of each year, this unfulfilled prophecy emaciated their hope. Many abandoned their vigil and renounced their faith because they felt that Allah had abandoned them. And we see this similarity with the test that Nabi Nuh alayhi salam had with his people when the punishment of Allah would come, and when these date palm seeds had grown and given harvest. And then that time came and it's no, take more seeds, plant again. And the next harvest, the punishment will come. People started losing their faith, waiting and waiting and waiting, and left the prophet. And we see here that people were waiting on this promise to come for this Savior, this next prophet who would set things right for them. But as the time went on, they never found this prophet, and they started losing hope in Allah and losing hope in getting this salvation and getting their situations better and getting guidance from Allah through this prophet. They started giving up and leaving. We see similarity of this with our time. While we're waiting for the reappearance or the hur of Imam Zaman, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. And we have to trust that Allah's promise is true and trust in the words of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and Ahlul Bayt Alayhi Salam, and know that when that time is right, it will happen. We don't not everything happens in the time that we want it to happen. We may say we want something right now, but now is not the best time for this. Imam Zaman needs to have very good followers who will not abandon him in time of need, who will be there for him. And when that time comes, and Allah knows when this time is, when the best time is, ultimately it is in Allah's hands. And we have to just work as if we are preparing to be good servants of Imam Zaman and to be there for our Imam and train ourselves to with good akhlaq and taqwa, and pray for the reappearance of the Imam and look forward to that day and wait for that time, inshallah. Be proactive in doing things for the Imam's cause. He says, when only a fraction of the believers remained and their oppression at the hands of the pagans had reached a peak, Allah determined that it was time to appoint his new prophet to warn and guide the citizens of Iran. For this role, he chose Hud. Hud was born into a prominent, honorable family of Iran, and so commanded great respect among his people. He was a merchant by profession, and it says he had been successful in the markets and had added a sizable fortune to his distinguished lineage. So this shows that there is nothing wrong with being wealthy. However, we have to use it in the path of Allah. We have to use our money in a good way. We even can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us wealthy in order that we spend this money in the good way. But a lot of times people get wealthy and they don't want to pay. This happened in time of Holy Prophet too, also, that the person came and asked for money and he was poor and he used to come to Salat every day, 5 Salat all the time. And he asked for money. A prophet prayed for him to be successful in his business. He started getting all of this business. Then he started looking around, where is this person? I haven't seen them in a while. He's just wheeling and dealing and doing his business, but he forgets, he doesn't come to Salat anymore. He doesn't have time. And when they send them to take the zakat from this person, he doesn't give it. He's holding on to this money. So there's no problem with, some people look at someone that if they are pious, they need to be poor and live with old clothes and bad things. And if someone is pious, or they need to be like that, and they shouldn't have nice things and shouldn't do this. This is not correct. It's okay to have nice things. There's nothing wrong with that, but we shouldn't be uh, extravagant and wasteful. And we should help other people with our money, and we should do things for Allah's cause, like bettering our communities and things like this. If all of us are poor, what are we going to get done? We can't build any centers. We can't, sponsor any programs, get books translated, many things. All of these things require money. So we just have to use it in a good way. He said, most importantly, for his impeccable honesty and integrity in all his dealings, he had gained the unfailing trust of his people. Similarly, like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is called as-sadiq wal al-amin, the truthful and the trustworthy. Said Hud, like his people, he spoke Arabic. Uh, he was dignified and looked and acted like his forefather Noah. He also resembled his forefather, the patriarch of all people, Adam. It said that he had a dark complexion, and he had a full head of hair, and was by all standards a handsome person, from these descriptions that we see from Bahar Anwar. Said his name derived from the Arabic word for guidance, and because he was destined to guide his people out of darkness towards Allah. So, for example, like Had, a guide, someone who guides people, like Al-Hadi. For example, we see Hud. Hud is same from this root word for guidance. So Hud began his prophetic mission at the age of 40 by coming out and proclaiming to his people, "O people, worship Allah, other than whom you have no deity of worship other than Him. Do not fear Him." It was the same message that Adam, Idris, Nuh, all of these prophets had brought before him. And he hoped that it would, rekindle something in his people, that they have heard these messages before from these other prophets. And he told his people that I am for you a trustworthy messenger. And they knew in their hearts that he was trustworthy and truthful. Until this day, he says, until this day, they had trusted him totally. He continued, so fear Allah and obey me. I don't ask for you any reward for this work. My recompense is solely with the Lord of the worlds, Rabbul Alameen. He wanted no reward from them, and they knew he didn't need any reward from them. He wasn't in it for money, because he had money, he had things, and he had a good, income. So his mission wasn't self-interest, and he wanted the best for his people, for them to be guided. So to his message of monotheism, he added the same warning that the prophets before him sent. He said, worship none other than Allah, for I fear for you the punishment of a momentous day. This is Quran Surah 46, ayat 21. So the leaders came, society, as usual, they are bringing excuses and things so that they do not lose their position of power, and they don't want to be brought down to the same level as other society members. So the leaders, they said, if our Lord had wished to send a messenger, he would have surely sent down angels. Since he has not, we reject what you have been sent with. This is Quran 41, ayat 14. It was the same bad ideas, the same fallacy that their ancestors had with Noah, and they had against Noah, that Allah would only talk to people through angels, only guide people through angels. But they didn't realize, he says, that the prophets, aside from being messengers, are also the ultimate role models, and that angels, who they don't have the same temptations and same things that we have, they could never fulfill this role. It needs to be fulfilled by someone of one of us, of mankind. It needs to be a role model for mankind. But we can, if an angel was the role model for mankind, we say, well, we can never compete with that. We can never be like, an angel. How are we supposed to follow an angel? But if a man came, we would be able to say, well, he is also a man. I should be able to follow him, and he is my role model. Because angels do not have the desires that we have. And we mentioned before a story in Tafsir Qummi of the angels that would complain against humans and say, they did this and they do that, and these are like the worst people ever and the worst group of creation and all these things. But they didn't understand, like our nature. So Allah gave these two angels the desires that humans had and sent them to the earth. And we mentioned they saw a beautiful woman, and then they turned towards her, and then they talked to her, and they wanted to they turned away from her, and then they came back and said, well, we want to pursue this woman. And the woman said, well, if you want to be with me, then you need to accept my religion, and my religion is worshiping idols. So they turned away and said, no, we shouldn't do that. Then they got overcome by their desires and came back and said, you know what, we'll join your religion. But their religion said, okay, you need to drink wine in order to be part of this religion and this thing. So they said, okay, they drink wine. And then they say, okay, a person saw them with the woman and said, I'm going to tell you guys are up to no good. And the woman said, you can never be with me because this guy is going to tell everyone, so you need to kill this man. So they killed this man, and then we're with this woman. So they were only on earth for just a small amount of time, and they have already, committed a shirk. They have committed drinking alcohol. They have committed murder. They have committed zina. They have done like all of these big major sins within just a few moments. And then this is, you see, you are complaining about these people, but you don't know the desires that these people have and how strong their desires are and how to control these desires. So we need a person who is like us, from our same genus, or like a human, to be our role model. So he says, Hud replied to them, because this is the thing, they're saying we only can be guided by angels. If Allah wanted to, he would send us angels. So Hud replied, are you surprised that a reminder from your Lord has come to you through a man from among you who has been sent so he can warn you? Remember when Allah made you inheritors of the earth after the people of Noah were destroyed, and enhanced you vastly in your physique. So remember all of Allah's blessings. Hopefully you will attain success. So he's reminding them of these bounties that they had. Remember Allah destroyed you people before, these people, and then he gave you all of these wonderful things after this ultimate destruction had came. Remember Allah and the one who gave you all these things. Remember the ultimate sources is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be thankful to him and look around at all of these blessings that you have. And he hoped to stir their conscience and their hearts and their minds to direct them towards remembrance of Allah, who had given them all of these bounties and who saved their people from the flood. Those people, those believers who were on that boat with Noah. He said, Allah saved your people. If it wasn't for Allah saving your ancestors, you wouldn't be here. You should be thankful to Allah for this. And he said, once they recalled the flood, they would have to remember Noah, who was as great as he was, had been a man like himself. So he's saying that, remember the prophet who came and saved all of your ancestors. He was also human, and I am also human as well. So Allah does not need to only send angels. Allah can send humans as prophets, and this is what Allah does. This is his way of doing this. So the leaders from among his people refused to let their conscience be cajoled, and they said, "We deem you to be steeped in foolishness, and we believe you to be among the liars." They could only see two explanations for Hud's denouncing their gods. Either he had went crazy, they said, or he actually believed what he was saying. And, he used bad intentions towards them to misguide them. If the first one was true, they said, okay, we're going to call him a liar. And this, like they did with all the prophets before. And so he said, Hud replied, "O people, I am not afflicted with foolishness. Rather, I am a messenger from the Lord of the worlds. I convey to you the messages of my Lord, and I am your well-wisher, and I am trustworthy." This is Surah 7, ayat 67 through 68. He said he felt no need to emphasize his rebuttal. He was saying only what they already knew to be true. First, they knew very well that he was no fool. To believe in only one God when all of creation is clearly the coherent product of a single will is perfectly rational. Second, if he were lying to them, it would either be out of malice, where he would be intentionally making this message altered, or out of careless inattention, the author says, whereby he would botch the message and fail to communicate it to them faithfully. Hud, on the other hand, as they very well knew, was their well-wisher and bore them no malice or ill will, and he was known to be trustworthy, and he could convey this message with no problems. So it says, having failed in their first two attacks, the leaders charged, "Have you come to us so that we worship Allah alone and abandon what our forefathers used to worship? If so, then bring on that with which you threaten us if you are truthful." So they say, bring this punishment on. It did not matter to them if what he said was true or that it made sense. They honored the tradition of their forefathers above everything else, no matter if it didn't make sense or whatever traditions they brought, it didn't make sense. And we'll close after this. So a lot of people have problem converting to Islam because, and these people, same thing, they had problem abandoning what their ancestors were doing. This is what they told the prophet, because they honored this tradition of their ancestors more than anything else. So when you convert to and leave this tradition of your ancestors, if it is wrong tradition, and you go towards Islam, then you have to admit that your ancestors died on falsehood. That is hard for a lot of people to say, all my forefathers died as kafir, or they were idol worshippers. I'm going to leave idol worship and be something else. It is as if they're turning their back on everything that came before them and going in a different direction. And this is hard for a lot of people to do that. And they honored what their forefathers did, even if the message made sense. And it was very clear. They say, well, we cannot do that because we belong to this group and this tribe, and they don't believe that, so we can't believe that. But at the end of the day, we have to realize that everyone is liable for his own choices in this life. You cannot base your belief on the belief of someone else or the belief of your ancestors. You cannot say, I'm a Muslim and I believe in Allah because so-and-so believes in Allah. My father or my mother believe in Allah. My grandparents believe in Allah, so I believe in Allah. Needs to have some proof, some rational proof. We cannot follow other people in our usul ad-din. We can only follow in furu ad-din or ahkam, things, salat, fasting, zakat, hajj, these type of things. But we cannot follow people in you know, because they believe Allah and Rasulullah, I like them, so I believe in Allah and Rasulullah. No, we need to have some conviction in our heart and some reasonings on why we believe there is one God, or why we believe Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the last messenger. Why do we believe Islam is the right religion? Not just because all my ancestors did. We need to come to those conclusions on our own. We need to learn our beliefs on our own. We need to, it's okay to have someone help us. Our parents are teaching us about Islam, but they're giving us reasons why we believe in Allah. Why do I, like, if I teach my children, I can't say you're a Muslim because I'm a Muslim and that's just it. That's all you need to know, is just say you're a Muslim and that's it. Yes, they are born as Muslims, but I need to teach them why I am a Muslim. Why do I believe in Allah? Why do I believe in a messenger? Why do I do this? Needs to have some reasonings, so that way, you know, when we are asked those final questions in our grave, who is your Lord? Who is your prophet? Who is your Imam? What is your book? What is your religion? So on and so forth. We can answer with conviction that we truly believe there is God because of this proof that we have, or this reasoning that we have, or not just because of our ancestors. So when we realize this, then we know that we are liable individually, and that even if our ancestors did something wrong and they are doing something, they are liable for this. I cannot just say that, okay, whatever they chose all this time, I have to be this thing. No, we have to make our own decisions. And, you know, I couldn't just say, oh, my family's are Christians, so, you know, I have to be a Christian too because my grandmother or grandfather, they are believing in this, so I have to believe in this because of them. I have my own mind, my own heart, my own reasoning, my own thinking. I need to be, you know, Allah made me a rational human being. We all have capability of making choices and evaluating things, and we have to come to conviction on our own. And it's hard for some people to do that. They just say, I don't want to go against my family, so I just believe because they believe, and that's it. So this is what these people were doing. They knew that it made sense, and they knew that he was truthful, but that meant they had to go against their tribes and their forefathers. It was too hard for them to do, so they fought against their prophet and end up causing their own destruction by their own hands. So we have to make sure that, you know, we evaluate things on our own, and we teach our children good reasonings, not just you are Muslim because I am Muslim and everybody else is Muslim and we came from Muslim country and that's our roots. We need to teach them why. It's very good. So and it will build our strength and character, and when we interact with other people, we meet people from other faiths, we will be able to defend our religion and say, okay, you believe this, but I believe this because of these things. And, you know, it will strengthen us to face the world, inshallah. So I think we should end here. And we have a long break because Muharram is starting, and I think we'll be back after Arba'in, inshallah. And
Inshallah.
we'll recap this part we went over shortly for Prophet Hud alayhi salam, and then continue from there. And so may Allah accept all your deeds in this month, and continue to remember me in your dua, and I'll remember all of you in my dua. And we'll see you soon, inshallah. صلوا على
inshallah.
محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد.
في امان الله. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام في امان الله. خدا حافظ.
Okay, take care. Allah Hafiz.
Take care. خدا حافظ.